All right. So as I said, I wanted to have a press conference this week to kind of follow up from last Friday. It was kind of late in the day when we kind of got a lot of media inquiries about the State Board of Accounts findings that had come in at the end of last week. And so there were some follow-up things I needed to do, but I wanted to make sure that I was able to clearly walk through this with the media today. That's the purpose of this particular meeting. From a perspective of kind of going back a little bit in time of how we kind of got where we're at, and then where we're at now with the findings and what our plan of correction is. So I'm just going to kind of walk through that. You know, the first thing is really to think about the legislative session, that the whole purpose of this TIF legislation was to put more controls in place. I mean, everything that the legislature's done with TIF related, it's to have more control. They want more transparency. There's been issues across the state with a variety of mayors and redevelopment commissions that have done things that made some in the legislature mad. So each session they've kind of addressed some of those issues. And most recently in 2014, the biggest change was to Senate Enrolled Act 118 was to have the controller take over the finances. They've always been able to do their own finances, and so that made it kind of official. The other part of that bill that I did not like at all was the sunsetting of the legacy TIFs, which is our downtown TIF district. So overall, I was opposed to the bill because in some ways it does take away local control, but on the other hand, there are some good things that everybody across the state needs to be doing, but I didn't like that one piece of legislation. But that's kind of how we got where we're at, and that's why they did it, because there was a lot of lack of transparency across the state. After that bill got approved, then I spent a lot of time, and my staff and many other people, IACT, other mayors, I mean, you name it, we were all trying to figure out, okay, how is that going to impact our communities? And so what we did was we talked to a variety of sources, from Department of Local Government Finance, State Board of Accounts, attorneys that work with the state of Indiana through the LSA. There were some people I talked to. There were some people that our local representatives talked to try to get a feel, okay, what does this really mean? How's that, you know, is this what is it what it says it is, and this is how it's going to work? Then tell us how we would process through that, because they really didn't have any guidance. Like any law that comes out, they just throw it out there. It's good July 1st and you have to adopt. I wanted to make sure that everything that we did was in compliance. And so we spent quite a bit of time doing that. We talked about budgeting, we talked about salary ordinances, we talked about money management, how to deal with this. And one of the things that's really kind of unique and easy part of it that kind of stood alone was the financial management side of it, because the city managed all of the funds for everybody except for the Redevelopment Commission. And the Redevelopment Commission managed their own money on their own computer, their own checking accounts. They did all their own stuff. And so the first thing that we wanted to do was begin to merge their accounting practices into ours, which are approved by the State Board of Accounts. And so having all the information about the budgets and the salary ordinances and the financial component of it, I put together an email and sent it to the redevelopment director on April 21st, and basically laying out the 4 things that we need to do collectively. The first being we need to prepare a report, basically, for budget, salaries, grants, et cetera, to be presented to the council. That's not a critical step in this. We just wanted to pull it all together so we could inform the council of all the steps we're taking. The second thing was a budget. We were right in the middle of creating budgets at that time, or just starting, I should say, as we moved into finishing them in June. But in April, we were just starting the budgets. So we'd asked the Redevelopment Commission to prepare a budget so we could get it included with all the rest of the budgets. Then the next step was to merge the financial records. And so we began to have meetings with the staff person up there that did all that type of work, and began to meet with the controller. And then the last piece was about, well, there's two last pieces, I guess. One is the salary ordinance itself that would go along with the budget. It's a separate document, but it'd be a salary ordinance for all the employees of the department. And then a resolution empowering the city council to be involved in the bonding side of it. With our other bonding that we do, as an example, I'll give you the sanitary district, their board has to approve everything, but the bonding has to go in front of the city council. Well, and this same authority would have to be given and clarified between the city council and the redevelopment commission whenever they do bonding. And that's pretty much it. Most of those things are pretty mundane. There's nothing, everybody else in the city complies with all of those things, except the redevelopment department was kind of standalone. So when this law came into effect, it's like, okay, treat it like a department, like the rest of the department, so it needs to be handled that way. I got no feedback from anybody in redevelopment that this was a problem, that any of these items were a problem. So assuming that we're going to move forward, I know there were some angst, there was some hard feelings about, oh, you know, don't like the law, I get all that. But we have to move forward because we had until July 1st to comply. And so, as I said earlier, the controller began to meet with the clerical person, the financial person that handled all that activity up there, and they began to do some things. But I still had no feedback from the redevelopment commission or the director about, gosh, you know, maybe we need to stop and pause here and figure some things out. There was no feedback like that. On May 21st, we were put in a situation where there was a redevelopment commission regular scheduled meeting where the city controller was invited to be able to have some discussion, let them answer questions or whatever about the financial transition. But basically the meeting turned into an ambush situation where the redevelopment director began to accuse the controller and myself of committing fraudulent activity, felonies, by moving money from one bank account to another bank account, and a variety of other things. We were not informed that that was going to happen. I wasn't invited to the meeting to discuss or address any of those issues. And so that really put us in a bad spot, because then publicly, now it's like it's the redevelopment commission versus the city because of compliance with the state law that none of us have any control over. That's just the way that we need to move forward. After that, a formal complaint was made to the State Board of Accounts by the redevelopment commissioner to redevelopment director to say that what we had done was illegal and they wanted it investigated. And all it had to do with, once again, was the transfer of funds from their bank accounts to our bank accounts. We didn't transfer everything, we just did some. And because of this complaint, the State Board of Accounts asked us to not do any more until it got sorted out. So we did not do any more. The next step was to have a meeting with the State Board of Accounts. They came in, Paul Joyce, the lead, along with their attorney and some other staff persons, and the redevelopment commission members, city council members, myself, and the city controller were all in this meeting where the opportunity was laid out to all of us to say, okay, we've received this complaint. What is it? Tell us everything that you want to be investigated. Tell us all the issues that are out there. And everybody had a chance at that meeting to lay it out for the State Board of Accounts in order to begin an audit of the redevelopment funds. After that meeting concluded, the next phase of this was for their 2 staff people that were assigned to this, 2 auditors. Which it's handled like any normal audit. You assign a team to it, and there were 2 people assigned to this, and they began to collect a lot of information. They copied all of our bank statements, our reconciliations, got all our fund balances off our computer system, interviewed staff, just a tremendous amount of initial, just like we do when we do a regular audit, we have to provide them with all kinds of information that they begin to go through. And then they develop their list of questions based on that. You know, whatever comes out of their findings at that point then turns into specific questions to identify any issues that there may be out there.